My aunt asked how Italy was. That was how I found out my family took a vacation without me. When I called my mother, she said my brother did not want me there. I checked the bank account. I had been paying for it. $4,500 a month, and they used it to book a trip I was not invited to, so I cut every dollar that night. 1 week later, 179 missed calls and texts. Not one of them started with, "Sorry." My name is Tegan. I am a real estate appraiser. I assess the value of properties for banks, investors, and legal proceedings. I walk through houses and I determine what they are worth based on structure, condition, location, and market. I am good at knowing what things cost. I spent years not applying that skill to my own family. That was my mistake. Let me start with how I found out. My aunt called me on a Tuesday and asked how Italy was. I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "The family trip." She said, "Landon posted pictures from the coast. Your parents looked so happy." I did not say anything for a long time. She said, "Are you still there?" I said I was not in Italy. She went quiet. Then she said, "Oh, I thought you were all going together." I was not going together. I was not going at all. And I found out from an aunt who assumed I had been there, because why would a family leave one person behind? My brother Landon is older than me. He has always been the one the family organized itself around. My mother planned holidays based on his schedule. My father adjusted his tone depending on Landon's mood. Landon did not earn the center of the room. He was placed there before he could walk, and nobody ever moved the furniture. He has a girlfriend named Petra. She has been around for a couple of years, sweet enough in person, silent enough by text. She fit into the family the way a new piece of furniture fits into an already decorated room. Nobody questioned whether she belonged because Landon put her there, and anything Landon placed, my parents accepted. My mother is a woman who believes family loyalty is a one-way street that runs toward her. She gives instructions disguised as love and love disguised as obligation. When she says she needs me to do something, she means she has already decided I will. She also knew the name of my business partner. She had asked about my work often enough to track where the money came from, even if she never once asked how hard I worked for it. I did not think much of it at the time. I should have. My father is present in the way a signature is present on a document. He is there. He confirms things, but he does not write the terms. He has spent his life co-signing my mother's decisions without reading them first. His silence is not peace, it is policy. Though once, years ago, when I told him I had been accepted into my certification program, he looked at me for a moment longer than usual. He said, "That is good, Tegan." Just those words. No follow-up. No celebration. But he said my name. And the way he said it made me think there was a version of my father buried under all that compliance who actually saw me. I held on to that moment longer than I should have, maybe because it was the only one I had. I started helping my family financially when I got my first real job. It began small. A grocery bill here. A car payment there. But small things in my family had a way of becoming permanent without anyone acknowledging the shift. By the time I was settled in my career, the monthly amount had grown to $4,500. Every month. Automatic. Like a second rent I was paying for a house I did not live in. The money covered my parents' mortgage, Landon's car insurance, the utility bills, groceries, and whatever Landon needed that month, which changed depending on which version of his life was falling apart. He went through jobs the way some people go through seasons. Each one lasted just long enough to end before it produced anything, and every time the gap between paychecks got wide enough, the call came. Not from Landon. From my mother. Because in my family, Landon did not ask for things. He received them. The asking was my mother's job. And the paying was mine. Landon had a way of explaining each failure that almost made sense if you did not listen too carefully. The first job had a toxic manager. The second did not value his ideas. The third was beneath him. The fourth just was not the right fit. He never said I did not try hard enough. He always said they did not see what I had to offer. And my parents nodded every time. because questioning Landon would mean questioning the 20 years they had spent telling everyone he was destined for something great. I never questioned the payments. That is the part that sits with me the most. I never once opened a spreadsheet and added up what I was sending. I never asked where it was going. I just paid, month after month, the way you pay a utility bill, without thinking about whether the lights you are keeping on are even in your own house. Then my aunt called, and the lights came on. After I hung up, I did something I should have done years ago. I opened my banking app. I pulled up the joint account I shared with my mother, the one I deposited $4,500 into every month, the one my mother managed. She had access, I had access. But I had not looked at the details in months because I trusted her the way you trust infrastructure. You assume the bridge is solid until the day it is not. I scrolled through the transactions. 3 weeks before the call, there were charges I had never seen. An airline booking for 4 passengers, my parents, Landon, and Petra. A hotel reservation in a coastal town in Italy. Restaurant charges in euros. A car rental. Excursion fees. Shopping. The numbers added up fast. Thousands of dollars. My dollars. Pulled from the account I filled every month. I went back further. A deposit for the hotel. A booking fee for the excursion company. A currency exchange. They had been planning this trip for weeks, using my deposits. While I sat at my desk appraising other people's homes and transferring money into an account that was quietly being drained for a vacation nobody told me about. My family had used my money to take a vacation they did not invite me to. They had packed their bags with my deposits and boarded a plane I paid for and sat at tables my transfers covered, and none of them thought to dial my number and say, "Do you want to come?" Not my mother, not my father, not Landon, not even Petra, who had smiled at me at Thanksgiving and told me she was glad I was part of the family. 4 passengers. 4 tickets. Not one of them mine. I sat at my desk and I felt something I had not felt in years. Not anger, clarity. And honestly, underneath the clarity, something embarrassing, shame. Because I had let this happen. I had built the bridge they walked across and never once asked where they were going. I called my mother. She picked up on the 3rd ring. Her voice was relaxed. The voice of a woman who had just come home from a vacation she did not pay for. I said I talked to my aunt. She said about what? I said about Italy. She was quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Then she said it was Landon's idea. He wanted a small trip. Just family. He said he did not want me there because, and this is the part that made my grip tighten on the phone, he said I made things stressful. That I brought a heaviness to group situations. That it would be more relaxed without me. I made things stressful. The person paying for the trip made things stressful. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was so perfectly, horribly fitting. I said you used my money. She said it is the family account. I said I deposit $4,500 into that account every month. You used it to fly to Italy without telling me. She said I should not make this about money. I said it is about money. It has always been about money. She just never wanted me to say it out loud. She told me I was being dramatic. She said Landon needed a break. She said I should be happy they had a good time. She said family is not about keeping score. I said I am not keeping score, I just read the receipt. I hung up. I sat at my desk for 10 minutes without moving. My hands were flat on the surface, and I could feel my heartbeat in my fingertips. Then I opened the banking app again. I removed my automatic transfer. I moved my remaining funds into a separate account. And I sent my mother one message. It said I will not be sending money anymore. Do not ask again. Within the hour, my phone started ringing. My mother. Then Landon. Then my mother again. Then my father. Then Landon. Then a number I did not recognize that turned out to be Landon, calling from someone else's phone. The pattern was immediate and total, like a machine that loses power, and every alarm goes off at once. I did not answer. I watched the screen light up and I let it ring. Every call that went to voicemail confirmed what I already knew. They were not calling because they missed me. They were calling because the deposit was late. By the end of the first week, the count was 179, missed calls and text messages combined. From my mother, my father, Landon, and 4 relatives I had not heard from in months who suddenly had opinions about my behavior. My mother's messages started with concern, then shifted to guilt, then to accusation. Landon's were short and angry, the tone of a man who had never been told no and was treating it like a system error rather than a boundary. My father's were 3 words each. Call your mother, call your mother, call your mother, like a man whose only function was forwarding someone else's demand. 179 attempts to reach the woman who had been paying the bills. Not one of them started with, "I am sorry." Every single one started with, "We need to talk," which in my family meant, "We need you to start paying again." I did not respond to any of them. I turned my phone face down on my desk and I went back to work. But my mother was not done. She was just getting started. And what she did next crossed a line I did not think even she would cross. I thought cutting the payments would be the hardest part. It was not. The hardest part was what my mother did when she realized the money was not coming back. She called my business partner, I found out on a Thursday morning. I walked into the office and my partner was sitting at her desk with a look I had never seen before. Not angry. Concerned in the specific way that people are concerned when they have been told something they are not sure whether to believe. She said my mother had called her the day before. She said my mother told her I was going through a mental health crisis, that I was making irrational financial decisions and my judgment could not be trusted. She said my mother asked her to keep an eye on me and to reconsider letting me handle major client accounts. I asked if she had said anything back. She said she told my mother she had worked with me for years and had no concerns about my performance. She said my mother paused and then said, "Well, you will see soon enough. You will see soon enough." My mother had not just called to plant a seed. She had called to start a fire and was planning to wait for the smoke. I stood in the doorway and I felt something shift in my chest. Not because my mother had lied. I was used to that. But because she had carried the lie outside the family and planted it in the one place I had built entirely on my own. My career. My credibility. The thing I had constructed while sending $4,500 a month to people who could not be bothered to buy me a plane ticket. My partner said she did not believe it. She said she had worked with me long enough to know the difference between a crisis and a family with an agenda. But she said I needed to know what happened because if my mother was willing to call her, she might be willing to call a client next. That sentence changed something in me. Up until that moment, I had been operating inside the framework of family. The idea that there were limits. That even people who used you would not go so far as to try to destroy the thing that kept you standing. My mother had crossed that line. She could not stop my money, so she tried to stop my career. That was not family. That was sabotage. I called my attorney that afternoon and asked her to draft a cease and desist letter. One for my mother. One for Landon. Formal. Clear. Do not contact my workplace. Do not contact my colleagues. Do not contact my clients. Any further interference with my professional life will result in legal action. The letters were sent the following Monday. The calls from my mother stopped for exactly 4 days. Then they started again. But now the tone was different. No more guilt. Now it was accusation. She told relatives I had threatened her with lawyers. She told anyone who would listen that I was selfish and ungrateful, and that everything she had ever done was for my benefit. The relatives called, not many, but enough. A cousin I liked asked me if everything was okay. I said yes. She said my mom told her I was in trouble. I said my mother called my business partner and told her I was mentally unstable because I stopped sending money. The cousin was quiet for a long time. Then she said she did not know that. I said most people do not. Landon did not call after the letter. He texted once. He said I was blowing this out of proportion. I did not respond. He texted again 2 days later. He said, "Mom is really upset." I did not respond. He texted a third time. He said, "I owe this family." I read that one twice. I owe this family. The family that took $4,500 a month from me and used it to vacation without me. The family whose golden child had not held a steady job in years and had just explained to Petra's parents at dinner that he was between opportunities, which was his latest way of saying unemployed without using the word. I screenshotted that message and saved it. Not for legal reasons, for clarity. Some sentences are worth keeping because they show you exactly where you stand. My father sent one text during all of this. It said, "Your mother loves you." I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back. Love was not on the itinerary. I was just the budget. I do not know if he understood what that meant. But it was the truest thing I had ever said to him and the first thing I had ever said that was not designed to keep the peace. 3 weeks after I cut the payments, my mother and Landon showed up at my door. No warning, no call, just a knock on a Saturday morning. I opened the door, and there they were. My mother in the coat I had paid for, Landon in the shoes I had bought him for a job interview he never followed up on, standing on the porch of a house they had never visited. Though of course my mother had my address, she had just never cared to use it until the money stopped. My mother started with the script. She said they needed to fix this. She said family should not be this way. She said she was worried about me. She said Landon missed me. Landon stood behind her with his hands in his pockets and said nothing, which was his version of agreement, the same way my father's silence was his. I let them in. Not because I wanted to. Because I wanted them to see the table. I had prepared for this. On the dining table, I had printed every bank statement from the joint account for the past 3 years. Every transfer I had made. Every withdrawal they had taken. Every charge from the Italy trip. Every month. Every dollar. 4,500 times 36 months. Stacked. Labeled. Organized the way I organize appraisal reports. My mother looked at the papers. She asked what it was. I told her it was what I had given this family in the last 3 years. Every dollar. Every month. I said she would notice there was no column for what came back. Because nothing did. She picked up one of the pages. Her eyes moved across the numbers the way eyes move when they are reading something they do not want to be true. She put it down and picked up another one. The Italy charges were highlighted. Hotel. Flights. Car rental. Restaurants. All of it. In yellow. On paper. In front of the woman who used the money. And the son who enjoyed the trip. She started to speak. I said I was not finished. I pointed to the Italy charges. I said this was the trip they took with my money. 4 passengers. 4 tickets. None of them mine. I pointed to the monthly totals. I said this was $4,500 a month for 3 years. That was over $160,000. And I had finally found the value they placed on me. I was worth a deposit. Not a seat on the plane. Landon shifted on his feet. He said this was not fair. I looked at him, really looked at him, and I said, fair is not a word you get to use in this room. My mother tried one more angle. She said she did not raise me to be this cold. And I heard myself say something I had not planned. I said she did not raise me at all. She invoiced me. The room went silent. I could hear the clock in the kitchen. I could hear a neighbor's dog barking 2 houses over. The kind of details you notice when the air in a room has been sucked out. My mother picked up one of the statements. She held it for a moment. Then she put it down. She looked at Landon. Landon looked at the floor. I told them they could leave. I told them the payments were not coming back. I said if they wanted a relationship with me, it started with honesty. Not with a knock on my door when the account was empty. My mother stood up. She said I would regret this. I said I had been regretting it for years. The difference was, now I was doing something about it. They left. I closed the door. I stood in my hallway, and I looked at the table covered in paper, and I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Not anger. Not sadness, space. Like a room that had been full of other people's furniture for years, and someone had finally cleared it out. It did not feel good exactly. It felt strange. It felt like standing in your own house and realizing you had never actually lived in it. The weeks after they left were quiet. Not because anything dramatic happened, because nothing did. The phone stopped ringing, the texts stopped coming. The relatives who had called with opinions went quiet. What I learned later from my cousin was that my family had not been stable for years. My money had not been helping them. It had been masking a collapse already in progress. They had no savings, no backup. They were living on minimum payments and my deposits and the kind of denial that only works as long as the checks keep clearing. Without my $4,500 a month, their budget folded within weeks. The mortgage fell behind, the utilities were cut, Landon's car insurance lapsed. The lifestyle they had been living was not built on their income, it was built on mine. My mother called once more. Weeks after the door. Her voice was different. Smaller. Not the commanding tone I had grown up with. She said they were going to have to sell the house. She said they could not afford it without my help. She said they had found a smaller rental across town. She said she wanted me to know. I listened. I did not offer to help. I did not say I was sorry. I did not say, let me look at the numbers. I just listened. Because listening without fixing was the hardest thing I had ever practiced, and I was still learning how to do it without my hands reaching for my wallet. She said she never meant for things to go this far. I said they went this far because no one stopped them. She said she was my mother. I said, I know. That is why it cost so much. She was quiet. Then she asked if I would come see the new place. I said not yet. She asked when. I said when she could tell me one thing she was sorry for, that was not about the money. She did not answer. The call ended. They sold the house the following month. I did not help them pack. I did not rent the truck. I did not co-sign the lease. Landon handled the logistics for the first time in his life, and from what my cousin told me, it took him 3 attempts to get the electricity transferred into his name. That is what happens when the person who handled everything steps back. The things that were invisible become impossible. Landon did not contact me for 2 months after the move. Then one afternoon, a text came through. Not an apology, not a request. He said, I got a job. 2 words, no context, no follow-up. I stared at it and tried to decide what it meant. Whether it was a peace offering or a status update, or just a man learning to say something about himself that was not an excuse. I did not respond. But I did not delete it. My father texted on a Sunday evening. Not call your mother, not your mother is upset. 3 different words. How is Tegan? My own name. Asked as a question by a man who had spent decades forwarding other people's demands instead of forming his own. I thought about that moment years ago when he said, that is good, Tegan, after my certification. Same voice. Same quiet. But this time he was reaching without my mother's hand on his back, pushing him forward. And that was worth noticing. I typed back. I am okay. 3 words for 3 words. Equal for the first time. I still live in the same city. I did not move. I did not run. I stayed in the place I built my career and my life, and I let my family adjust to a reality that exists without my money holding it together. That was harder than leaving. Leaving gives you distance. Staying gives you proximity to the consequences. And I needed to see them, not out of cruelty, out of proof that the life I had built was solid enough to stand on its own. My mother and I do not speak regularly. When we do, it is short and careful. She has not apologized for calling my business partner. She has not apologized for Italy. She has not said the word sorry in a way that is not followed by the word but. I have accepted that she may never get there. And I have stopped waiting. Landon is working. I do not know the details. I do not ask. My cousin tells me he is managing. That word is enough. I drive past their old house sometimes. Someone else lives there now. A young couple who bought it after the sale went through. The lights are on. The porch looks the same. I think about the girl who used to sit in that house and not know what she was worth. I think about the woman who drives past it now and does. They did not lose a daughter, they lost a deposit. And the day they understand the difference is the day the conversation can start. If your family has ever treated your generosity as a subscription they were entitled to cancel you from whenever they felt like it, I want you to hear this. You are not an account. You are not a monthly transfer. You are allowed to close the account. And if the lights go off, that was never your bill, it was theirs. And if there is someone in your life who showed up without an invoice, who stayed without a payment plan, drop their name below. They deserve to be recognized. Tell me what happened, and tell me where you are watching from, and what time it is right now. I read every single one. Subscribe if you have not already. I will see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves.